How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This is Mike. I'd like to do sort of a summary of the films that I've watched in the last week, and I'm taking this idea from a couple of my YouTube friends, primarily Bob Harrison, who does this every week just about. He's been doing it for a long time. And now one of my other friends, Harry Benson, aka Mac Photos, he's starting to do it too. So let me give this a shot. I've thought about doing this for quite a while, and we'll see if I can turn this into a regular series. Okay? So, the clock is ringing. All right. Let's start off with the film that I saw in my film class this week. And of course, the class this time is based on the films of 1999. So we watched this incredible classic film that everybody seems to love, the #1 thriller of all time, Bruce Willis, Haley Joel Osment, Toni Collette, Donnie Wahlberg. Now, I saw this movie when it first came out in 1999. I haven't seen it since. Picked this up about a year ago, but I never watched it at home. So it was a real treat to see it in the class again. And there was a guy sitting a couple of rows ahead of me who said after the film was over that he had never seen the movie before and he did not get the twist. And most of the people in the class who had seen it before, they said, no, we didn't get the twist either. So I guess we're all pretty stupid, but I think it's a great movie. Didn't diminish any of the enjoyment or the sentiment at the end, knowing what was going to happen. Really a great film. Okay, now for what I watched at home, starting off with this sort of an obscure film noir from 1950, The Big Night. The Big Night, directed by Joseph Losey, starring a young actor named John Barrymore Jr., of course, the son of the legendary silent film actor. And, of course, John Barrymore Jr. in the late 50s would change his name to John Drew Barrymore. And he has a starring role in this film about a 17-year-old boy, and Barrymore was 18 at the time that he made this. 17-year-old boy who decides to get revenge for his father. At the beginning of the film, it happens to be the kid's 17th birthday, and he's at the bar, the nightclub that his father owns, where the father is going to have a little celebration for him with the birthday cake and all this stuff. And a man comes into the bar and beats his father up. He actually takes a cane and whips his father over and over again, and the father allows it to happen. And the kid can't understand why this man is beating his father, why his father is allowing it to happen. So he's got all these very mixed feelings about feeling shame for his father, who he always thought was the ideal man for him to look up to, and wanting to get revenge on this man who did this thing without explanation. So the kid goes out into the night, the big night of his 17th birthday, to try to get revenge on this man. And it's a fascinating film. John Drew Barrymore is very, very good. John Barrymore Jr. is very, very good. Also, Preston Foster, Dorothy Cummingore, who was in Citizen Kane. Very good movie. Very interesting. Here's the film I picked up at Big Lots about a week ago. Never seen it before. Track of the Cat from 1954, directed by William Wellman, starring Robert Mitchum, Teresa Wright, Diana Lynn, Tab Hunter, Beulah Bondi, and William Hopper, and another actor who I'd never heard of before named Philip Tong. He plays the father of this family. Interesting little movie. William Wellman, years before, had directed this film, The Oxbow Incident, based on a very best-selling book written by, let's see, Walter Van Tilburg Clark. And this film was a big success. It's a great movie if you've never seen it. So he decided to direct another film based on a book written by this man. And this was also a very popular book. The film, I guess, it was not terribly successful when it came out. It's a fascinating film, but it has a lot of flaws. It's kind of overwrought with depressing dialogue, especially coming out of the mouth of Beulah Bondi, who is the matriarch of this family. They live out in the wilderness, and they are trying to save their herd of cattle, which is their mainstay of living, from the attacks of this wildcat who comes into the family farm and keeps killing their cattle. So that's the big thing. The cat is sort of symbolic of evil, and the evil that's befalling this family. Great performance by Robert Mitchum. Gives him a chance to show another side of his persona. William Wellman when he said that when he made this film, he wanted to make a color film that looked like it was in black and white. So if you can figure that out, it's beautiful to look at and really interesting performances by everybody. And I will watch this again. I wasn't crazy about it, but I was fascinated by it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So, Track of the Cat. Here is one of my Dollar Tree specials that I picked up for $1, and I thought, why not? I'm curious. Family of Lies, starring John Schneider, who was supposed to be the star of the film. He's the only name actor in the film, and he's really not the star of the film. It's all about these irritating teenagers who find out that all kinds of strange things about their parents' past, and they're being stalked by killers, and it's just sort of one jump scare after another. Not very good. This will probably go on the pile of things to give to Goodwill. Next is another one I picked up at Big Lots, didn't know anything about it. Criminal Activities, starring Michael Pitt, Dan Stevens, and John Travolta. And I decided to buy it because I kind of like John Travolta, and I haven't seen a lot of his movies. It's directed by Jackie Earle Haley, a child actor who is now writing and directing films, and he also performs in this. It started out really well. It had kind of a quirky sense of humor to it about these young guys who borrow some money from the mob. That's always a big mistake, to buy a big bunch of stock that they have inside information the stock is going to just go sky high. Well, it doesn't. It goes sky low, and they lose everything, and then so they're in debt to the mob, headed by John Travolta, who seems to be channeling Vinny Vega from Pulp Fiction. So it has a real interesting sense of humor to it. But as the film moves on, it gets less humorous and more serious and more violent. It has a totally unbelievable series of twist conclusions at the end. So it's really not all that good. Starts out good and ends up badly. Next is a film called Born to be Blue, in which Ethan Hawke plays the trumpet player slash singer Chet Baker. And it's a fascinating little movie, and I love Ethan Hawke. What they did here was they kind of invent a character played by this actress, Carmen. Oh boy, need my glasses, folks. Carmen Ejogo, beautiful actress I'd never heard of before. She plays his wife in this film. She's kind of a composite character of supposed to be several of the women that he had in his life back then, and it becomes sort of a story of their romance and their trials and tribulations in their relationship, rather than focusing so much just on Chet Baker and his music and his struggles. Although every time Ethan Hawke is in a scene, I mean, it's worth seeing. It's a fascinating character, Chet Baker, somebody I'm really interested in. Now, Ethan Hawke took trumpet lessons so he could mimic playing the trumpet, but the actual music is played by someone else. But Ethan Hawke does do his own singing. He's actually very good. Sounds a lot like Chet Baker, which is freaky. Definitely worth seeing. Some of it's in black and white, some of it's in color. All right. Next up is another Dollar Tree special, Devil's Whisper. No stars in it whatsoever. It's about this young kid. You can see his face here. This young kid who was a pretty good kid who aspires to be a Catholic priest, but he starts wearing this crucifix that he finds hidden in an old box that belonged to his grandparents. And when he puts on this crucifix, and all of a sudden he's strangely affected by evil spirits, and it gets really crazy. I have to admit that I have a real fetish about watching these movies that use Catholic symbolism, even if they use it really badly. And luckily, there's nothing terribly offensive in this, but it's just pretty ridiculous. So another one on the Goodwill pile. You know, some of these Dollar Tree films are definitely worth $1. Here's a film called While the City Sleeps from 1956, and let's see. This is a film noir, and it's not. I was kind of disappointed in it, even though it has a great cast of actors. First of all, it's directed by Fritz Lang, who has made so many classic films. I was expecting this to be another Scarlet Street or something like that. So we have Dana Andrews, Rhonda Fleming, George Sanders, Howard Duff, Thomas Mitchell, Vincent Price, John Barrymore Jr., again, Sally Forrest, James Craig, and Ida Lupino. Now, it sort of weaves two stories together. At the beginning of the film, we see John Barrymore Jr. Breaking into a woman's apartment and killing her in a very brutal, very, very shocking scene. And so the film, then it goes into this newspaper office that the owner of the newspaper is in the scene. He passes away, and it goes into the ownership of his son, played by Vincent Price, who was a total loser in life and a ne'er-do-well. And nobody can play a ne'er-do-well better than Vincent Price. And he decides to make the search for this killer by these investigative reporters. He decides to make it into a contest. And the winner of this contest will become sort of like an executive producer at the paper. I can't remember the title, but get a more prestigious position and make a lot more money. So we have these people who are vying for this position, and then we have the scenes where the actual killer is doing his thing. And those are really the only scenes in the film that I found interesting. Every time John Barrymore Jr. shows up, and he gets crazier and crazier with every scene, it's worth watching. And it's like you have two movies going at once, and that's the one that I wanted to watch. So it was kind of a disappointment, but I will definitely watch it again, and maybe I will change my opinion. It's certainly worth seeing. Here's a film that I love from 1967, Up the Down Staircase, starring Sandy Dennis as a school teacher in a New York City high school that's in a very bad neighborhood, has a lot of trouble, and it's her first job, and she's got all these starry-eyed ideas about what it's like to be a teacher, and she finds herself just every day is a battle and a conflict, not just with the administration, with the constant filling out of forms and trying to deal with all these kids, most of whom have no desire to be in class. It's a wonderful movie. It's kind of a good companion piece to Blackboard Jungle, which came out about 11 years earlier. It just switches genders. It has Sandy Dennis standing in for Glenn Ford, and it's a fascinating film, something I've always liked. Okay? Now, I realize Sandy Dennis is an acquired taste for most people, but I really liked her. She was a good actress. Here's a B film that I picked up. It's called Behind Locked Doors, which is classified as kind of a noirish thing, but I don't know about that. It's about an investigative reporter who goes underground into an insane asylum in order to find this corrupt judge who is hiding there. Richard Carlson plays the investigative reporter, and there's a lot of good scenes once they get into the insane asylum. The lead actress is a woman named Lucille Bremer, who had started out big at MGM in Meet Me in St. Louis. She was a dancer who ended up dancing with Fred Astaire in a couple of films, but her career never went anywhere, so she ended up in these low-budget films, and this was 1948, and that was her last movie. Not a bad little film, kind of cool. And finally here, speaking of MGM, this is a classic MGM musical from 1943, Best Foot Forward, starring Lucille Ball, Harry James and his orchestra, and a bunch of contract teenage players at MGM, like, let's see, we have Gloria DeHaven, June Allison, Nancy Walker, Virginia Wheeler. It's a very lively, funny movie. Lucille Ball basically plays herself. She plays Lucille Ball, the actress, the movie star, who decides to accept an invitation from this young kid at a military school. He's written her a fan letter. He said, I would love, Miss Ball, if you would come to my prom. And she decides this is a good idea to get publicity for her staggering career, and so she does this thinking that it's going to be a chance for her to get her picture in the paper and get some publicity and all that sort of thing and build up her image a little bit, and everything that can go wrong does. And it's very, very funny. She certainly gets her picture in the paper, but she's standing there in her slip when she does it. Lucille Ball was very beautiful, and this was 8 years before I Love Lucy, but you can see a lot of the same sort of the way she offers her dialogue, the way she speaks her lines, and the looks on her face and all that. You can see a lot of Lucy Ricardo in this character, although she's much more level-headed, not as dizzy as Lucy would be. But anyway, very funny movie and great fun to watch. And that is my video. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think about any of these films. Comments are always welcome. Take care.